Recording in progress.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Sabhaye Namaha. Allow me to begin with a prayer invocation chant. Om Yasmin Sarvam Yatas Sarvam Yas Sarvam Sarvadrik Tata Sarva Bhava Padatitam Bodhanandam Bhajamyaham Bodhanandam Smaramyaham Bodhanandam Namamyaham Yastektva Rupamadhyam Prabhavati Jagato Nekadanugrahaya Prakshina Klesharashir Vishama Vishadaro Anekavaktra Subhogi Sarvajnana Prasutir Bhujaga Parikaro Pritaye Yasya Nityam Devo Hi Shassavo Vyat Sita Vimalatanur Yogado Yoga Yuktaha Yogena Chittasya Padena Vacham Malam Sharirasya Cha Vaidyakena Yopakarottam Pravaram Muninam Patanjalim Pranjaliranatosmi Abahu Purushakaram Shankhachakrasidharinam Sahasrashirasam Shvetam Pranamami Patanjalim Shrimate Anantaya Nagarajaya Namo Namaha Asmadacharyebhyas Sarvebhyo Namo Namaha Om. Those three verses, the Dhyana shlokas on Maharishi Patanjali, were composed by the great scholar and king Raja Bhoja, who wrote a commentary on the Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. I believe he lived in the 9th century AD. So today we are going to explore the topic of Patanjali Yoga Sutras and the connections with the Bhagavad Gita. It is a very insightful exercise to cross-reference these two texts. Both are, of course, Yoga Shastras. And when we, for example, the sutras are very cryptic. You will see what is the definition of a sutra shortly. In order to unpack the wisdom contained in the sutras, it is a good idea to refer to other texts, including the Bhagavad Gita. Many of us perhaps here in the audience are new to the study of Yoga Sutras. So let me give a brief intro to what the Yoga Sutras are. So Maharishi Patanjali, the scholars say that he lived sometime between 200 BC to 200 AD. That is the consensus among the historians. And there are some outliers also. Some historians believe he lived much before that, thousands of years before that. But it doesn't matter to us. In fact, in the Indian spiritual tradition, they're very notorious on concealing the date when the great rishis, the great acharyas lived. Perhaps because this wisdom, this knowledge is eternal. So we don't need to actually give a date and time. So, for sure, the Patanjali Yoga Sutras were written after the Mahabharata, so after the Bhagavad Gita. The Patanjali Yoga Sutras are short, terse statements, sutras, that are captured in 4 chapters. So there are 4 chapters in the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, and the total number of sutras in Patanjali Yoga Sutras is, does anyone know the number? How many sutras are there in the Patanjali Yoga Sutras? Pardon me?
196.
Perfect. In fact, there are 2 correct answers. 196 and 197. Because some versions of the Yoga Sutras contain an extra sutra in the 3rd chapter. So if you had said the mean 196.5, that is also a correct answer. So these 196 or 197 sutras are divided into 4 chapters. The first chapter is called Samadhipada, the chapter on Samadhi. Second chapter is Sadhanapada, the chapter on sadhana practices. It is called sadhana. Sadhana literally means true wealth. Right? Dhana means wealth. So sadhana, the truth. We say health is wealth, right? So the investment that we put in our practices, that will accrue over time. It will give us the true wealth, sadhana. And the third chapter is called Vibhuti Pada, the chapter on the yogic powers that accrue with these sadhanas. And the final chapter, Kaivalya Pada, the chapter on Kaivalya, Kevalasya Bhavana, or liberation, where we are unconditionally happy, unconditionally in a place of freedom. We are not bound by the clutches of Prakriti. So these are the 4 chapters of the Patanjali Yoga Sutras. What is a sutra? I mentioned sutra is a short, terse statement. In fact, there is a definition of what sutra is. Alpaksharam asandigdam saravat vishwatomukam astobam anavadyam cha sutram sutra vido viduhu. There are 6 attributes of a sutra. In fact, the word sutra literally means a thread. The English word suture and the Sanskrit word sutra, they come from the same root, suture, sutra. And the 6 attributes of sutra that is described in this verse are alpaksharam. That means it should contain very few words. There should be no superfluous words. It should be piti, as they say, terse, piti. And then it should be direct, asandigdam. There should be no doubt about its meaning. It should be clear. And then it should present the complete perspectives on that subject. It should be a complete text. So the text on yoga, the sutras of Patanjali, should give all perspectives, Vishwatomukam, all perspectives around the topic of yoga. And then the sutra form of writing should avoid filler words. There should be no superfluous words, filler words. Sometimes when we write poetry, we may have to introduce a filler word in order to satisfy the chandas, the rhythm, the meter. There should be no repetition. So once a subject has been addressed, it should not be again, yesterday I think one of the presenters, I think Advaiji, he said, there is no sin in repetition, right? But according to the sutra form, if you're writing a sutra, repetition is sin. It should not be repeated. And then the final attribute of sutra form of writing is that it should contain absolute truth. It cannot be disproved. They say it cannot be disproved. They don't say it can be proved, because some of these truths cannot be proved. And they cannot be disproved for sure. You can think of these statements as axioms, fundamental tenets of yoga philosophy. That is what we are going to see. So this is what sutra is. So now let us turn the spotlight of focus to yoga. So we are going to study Yoga Sutras. So let us look at what yoga is. What is the definition of the word yoga? And we are not going to consult Patanjali or Sri Krishna from the Bhagavad Gita yet. So the first thing we are going to do is to look at the dictionary definition of the word yoga. So what do we mean, dictionary definition? So most of the Sanskrit words come from dhatus, root verbs. And the great sage Panini, Maharishi Panini, who is considered as the father of Sanskrit grammar, so he compiled a list of about 2000 dhatus or verb roots. And they are the foundations. So you can think of this as the canon or the original dictionary of Sanskrit. So the word yoga comes from the dhatu, the root verb yuj. And in the dhatu pata of Panini, which is the compilation of these 2000 verb roots, the dhatu yuj appears 3 times. There are 3 occurrences in 3 different places in the dhatu pata. And therefore there are 3 definitions of yoga, dictionary definition. We are talking about dictionary definitions of yoga. The first dictionary definition is yujir yoge. Yujir yoge. That means yoga is union, uniting 2 entities together. You can think of the jivatma, paramatma, or uniting the body, the prana, and the mind, and so forth. And we will look at this a little more deeply in a few moments. The second definition of yuj that we see in the dhatu pata is Yuja Samadhau. Yuja Samadhau. Yoga is Samadhi, equanimous state of mind. And we are going to see in a few moments the technical definition from the Yoga Sutras. What is Samadhi? You will see that. So, equanimous state of mind. Here, we are not talking about uniting two things together. It talks about the state of the mind. You see, there are no two entities that we are going to merge together. No. And then the third definition of yoga, third occurrence of yuj in the Dhatu Pata, yuja samyamane. Yoga is samyama. Samyama means complete control. Complete control. So, complete control over our mind. So, in the Yoga Sutras, Patanjali will talk about samyama in the third chapter, and he defines samyama as, you can think of it as complete control over the mind, so that all the superpowers of the mind that are now latent, that means we don't know that we have all these powers of the mind, their potential get unleashed. You see, so we are able to do things that may appear superhuman, say. In other words, it's like a seed blossoming to its fullness. It becomes a big oak tree. You see, so blossoming of the human potential to fullness is yoga. You can think of it that way. Blossoming of human potential to fullness is yoga. So these are the three definitions of yoga. Now, different yoga shastras, they choose one of these three definitions and they present their work, their teachings. For example, the first definition of yoga, yujir yoge, yoga is union. A classic text, Yoga Yajnavalkya, it adopts this definition. And in the Yoga Yajnavalkya, the great Rishi Yajnavalkya, he defines yoga as Samyoga Yoga Uchyate Jivatma Paramatmanoho. So the merging or uniting in harmony of the Jivatman and Paramatman, or the dissolution of the Jivatman in Paramatman, is yoga, or the merging of the individual consciousness to, it's like a river merging into the ocean. We can think of it that way. So it loses its smaller identity and becomes something bigger. Patanjali Yoga Sutras, Patanjali does not adopt that definition. You see, most of us are familiar with the meaning of the word yoga as union, but according to Patanjali, he doesn't state the definition that way. Patanjali adopts the second definition, namely yoga is samadhi, yuja samadhav. That is made clear by the very first commentary of the Patanjali Yoga Sutras by the great sage Vyasa. So Vyasa, in his commentary early on, in fact when he gives the commentary on the very first sutra of Patanjali, Atha Yoga Anushasanam, so when he expands on the first sutra, he says yoga samadhi. Yoga samadhi. He defines yoga as samadhi. So he adopts the second dictionary definition. So when we are reading the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, if somebody asks where is merging happening, what are we uniting together, there is no union there. Patanjali, they say this company should not have any union. Patanjali, no union here. It's all the state of the mind. So Patanjali is concerned about transforming the mind to the samadhi state of mind. So it's a process of self-transformation into the highest state. It is like the same substance, carbon. You can find carbon in the form of coal or in the form of a diamond. In fact, there are many allotropes of carbon, graphene and coal and diamond. And if somebody says, I'm going to give you a birthday present, I'm going to give you carbon. So which form of carbon do you want? Nobody will say coal, right? So we want the most precious, the most valuable. So the crystal clear state of mind that leads one to samadhi is the highest expression of chitta, the highest expression of the mind. So yoga samadhi, statement that is given by sage Vyasa in the Yoga Sutra Bhashya. Now samadhi, the word samadhi has been defined twice in the Yoga Sutras. Once in the first chapter. The first chapter is titled Samadhi Pada, and once again in the third chapter, it he defines samadhi in the context of Ashtanga Yoga. In the Ashtanga Yoga, the last limb of Ashtanga Yoga is samadhi. So in the first definition, Patanjali says, so he defines what is samadhi, or in fact he defines what is samapatti, which is a synonym of samadhi. He says, Kshina vrittehe abhijatasyeva manehe grahitu grahana grahyeshu tatstadadanjanata samapattihi. So Kshina vrittehe, that means samapatti happens when the vrittis, what are vrittis? So here Patanjali is talking about the chitta vrittis. Vrittis means activities. Activities. So chitta vrittis means the activities of the chitta. So you can think of chitta. For now, let's interpret chitta as the mind. There's a deeper definition that we will see later. So the activities of the mind, when they settle down, so kshina means we are reducing the vrittis. When we reduce the vrittis, what happens is that the mind becomes so tranquil, so still. I think a couple of days back, Anupji's presentation, he showed the reflection of the mountain in a tranquil lake. You can see a perfect replica of the mountain. But if the lake is filled with rajoguna, in other words, it's a turbulent lake, the surface of the lake is agitated, it will not produce a perfect replica. For example, if you see the reflection of the moon on the lake, then you will see that the moon is shaking there. The reflection of the moon is always changing its form, shaking. And what we think is, the moon is moving, the moon is shaking. We are attributing the shaking of the vrittis, the activities of the chitta, onto the object that we think we are seeing. In other words, we are consuming the world through the chitta. For example, if we see a tree, how do we sense the tree? How do we perceive a tree? It has to register in the mind somehow, right? The light from the tree, it goes into the eyes. It makes a inverted image in the back of the eye, the retina, and the optic nerves transmit that image to the mind. And in the mind, it has to register as a chitta vritti. So there is a vritti corresponding to the object that we are seeing. But if the mind is already turbulent, then we may put the vrittis of the mind, we may project it onto the object that we are seeing. It's like when we see our reflection in a concave or a convex mirror. For example, when we have a big concave mirror, we look fatter than we are, right? Or the nose might appear bigger, or one ear might be bigger than the other, and we think, oh, that is how I am, and we assume that to be the reality, you see. But when the chitta vrittis are silenced, then our chitta, the mind, gives us the perfect replica of truth. We are seeing the truth, you see. So when we are inquiring about ourselves, who am I? Then when the chitta vrittis are silenced, we have an idea. It gives us a true picture of who we are. So when the chitta vrittis are silenced, it takes us to a place of samadhi. It takes us to the place of samapatti or samadhi. So I hope it's clear so far, right? Now, how to obtain this samadhi, right? How does coal become diamond? So thousands of millions of years it is buried underground in high temperature and high pressure, and it is transformed into diamond. So like that, what is it that we have to do to transform this state of mind? The state of mind that is agitated, it is gripped by rajas and tamas. So when the mind is rajasic, it's turbulent. When the mind is tamasic, it is dull. So how can we transform this mind to a sattvic state of mind, which is crystal clear? Right? Kshina vrittehe abhijatasyeva maneha. Mani means crystal clear state. All of us would like to have a crystal clear state of mind. So Patanjali gives us the formula how to attain this state of chitta vritti nirodha and therefore samadhi. So would you like to know what Patanjali says?
Yes.
Oh, even before we step into it, so we are looking at the connections between Yoga Sutras and Bhagavad Gita, right? Bhagavad Gita, of course, there are many definitions of yoga around samadhi. Krishna defines yoga as samadhi. Samadha vachala buddhihi tada yogam avapsisi. Samadhi is yoga. And of course, the famous statement, samatvam yoga uchyate. Equanimous state of mind. Samadhi is yoga. So you see many such definitions. And about union, the first definition that sage Yajnavalkya had adopted, right? Interestingly, Krishna says yoga is disunion. Disunion of communion with misery. Tam vidya dukkha samyoga viyogam yoga uchyate. Yoga sannita. Tam vidya dukkha samyoga viyogam yoga sannitam. So disunion of the communion of the mind with dukkham, to misery. So we will see many of these definitions in the Bhagavad Gita as well as we proceed. So how to bring the mind to a place of chitta vritti nirodha or samadhi state of mind? So there are two keys, there are two fundamental practices that we have to do. Would you like to know what they are?
Yes.
So Patanjali says, Abhyasa Vairagyabhyam Tannirodha. Abhyasa Vairagyabhyam Tannirodha. That Nirodha, that Chitta Vritti Nirodha, the cessation of all the activities of the mind, so that the mind transforms from turbulent state to a tranquil state. It happens through Abhyasa, practice, and Vairagya. Vairagya, we can interpret it as detachment or dispassion. And so there are many words, or centeredness, and we will see what it is, the actual definition that Patanjali is going to give. And the same teaching we see in Bhagavad Gita as well, the 6th chapter, Dhyana Yoga or Atma Samyama Yoga. Krishna gives the teachings around meditation, how to sit for meditation, how to manage our life and lifestyle so that the quality of our meditation is supreme. For example, if we have a lot of junk food and sit for meditation, we can't expect to quiet the mind. We might sit in a couch potato asana, right? And we can't have high quality state of meditation. So how to prepare the body, how to manage the breath, how to bring the prana to a place of control, and then it becomes easier to quiet the mind and enjoy the bliss state of meditation. My yoga teacher used to say that the 6th chapter is a complete manual on meditation. How to meditate. The entire, whatever that needs to be said about meditation is there, the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. So Arjuna listens patiently to the 6th chapter, the teachings. And then Arjuna says, no, this is not for me. Let's move on to the next yoga, right? You are telling me to quiet the mind. But my mind is like the wind, right? Like a hurricane. How can you expect me to quiet the mind? He says, how does it start? Arjuna Vacha Chanchalam Himana Krishna Pramadhi Bala Vadridam Tasyaham Nigraham Manye Vayoriva Sudushkaram. Like Vayu, Dushkaram, unruly. Just like the hurricane with category 6 force, right? So powerful it is. And look who is saying that, Arjuna. Arjuna had the power of focus. He was the greatest warrior of his time. And he is saying that. And what about you and me, right? So Arjuna says he gives up on meditation. And then Krishna says, no, don't get discouraged. He said, Asamshayam Mahabahu, Krishna says, Asamshayam Mahabahu Manodur Nigraham Chalam Abhyasena tu Kaunteya Vairagyena cha Grikhyate. No doubt the mind is unruly. For everyone, it is the same experience. Don't worry, you are not the one exception in the universe where meditation will not be applicable to you. No, don't think like that. In fact, you can easily manage the mind with abhyasa, practice, and vairagya. Vairagya is dispassion or detachment. And what is abhyasa and vairagya? Patanjali gives the definition. Abhyasa, tatra sthitau yatno bhyasaha. To stand in the self, to abide in the self. So when the chitta vrittis are tranquil, when the mind is tranquil, then tada drashtuhu swarupe avasthanam. The mind reposes in the self. Drashtuhu swarupe. It abides in the nature of the seer, nature of the Purusha. Drashtuhu Swarupe Avasthanam. Swarupe Avasthanam can be shortened as Swastha, standing in the self. Swastha. Swastha means health, right? Swastha. Abiding in the self is health. For example, when we uproot a tree, then it doesn't thrive. It doesn't have any supply of nutrients. So when we are uprooted from the self, when we forget ourselves, then we cannot thrive. To experience exuberant health, we need to abide in the self. So swastha can be expanded as swarupe avasthanam. So whatever methods, devices, strategies, tricks that we use in order to stand in the self, abide in the self, is called abhyasa. And that's what Patanjali defines abhyasa as. Tatra sthitau yatnaha abhyasaha. To stand there, to abide in the self. Whatever you do, whether you do headstand or whether you do pranayama or even choosing the right kind of food to consume, that is also an abhyasa. So abhyasa is not just what we do inside a yoga mat. We cannot be part-time yogis. I'm a great yogi when I'm inside the yoga mat, but great bhogi outside the yoga mat. It doesn't work. In fact, my teacher, one of the common questions that he used to get was, how much time should I practice yoga every day? And his answer was always the same, 24 hours. Because without exception, we can actually practice yoga every moment of our life. Question here.
Is that the same as Antakarana Shuddhi? Like, do whatever it takes to achieve Antakarana Shuddhi? That's
Yeah, Antakarana Shuddhi, you can think of it as one of the intermediary goals. And here the goal is to abide in the self.
Okay, so
And if that is a stepping stone, the Antakarana Shuddhi, purifying processes, then that is one step towards the goal, yes. So tatra sthitau yatno bhyasaha. Whatever you do in order to abide in the self is abhyasa. And then he gives 4 ingredients for a high quality yoga practice. Would you like to know what are the 4 ingredients for a high quality yoga practice? He says, Satu dirghakala nairantarya satkara sevito dridabhumihi. Satu dirghakala. It has to be done for a long time. In other words, the true benefits of yoga is in the long term. Several months, several years, even decades. That is when we enjoy the true benefits of yoga. So if we just do yoga for 1 week or 1 weekend, then yes, we have a glimpse of the benefits of yoga, but it may not sustain itself. We go back to our old habits. So the true transformation happens when it is dirghakala, long time. And the second ingredient is nairantarya, without a break. Without saying, oh, today is Labor Day weekend, so I'm not going to do yoga. Or today I'm not eating, I'm fasting, so it's not like that at all. You see, the practice of yoga should be done without a break. And then the third is satkara. Satkara means with a positive attitude, with enthusiasm, with sacredness, with reverence, honor and respect. You see, it's not like you wake up in the morning, oh, I promised myself, I made a New Year resolution and to drag the body inside the yoga mat. No, that's not satkara. So satkara is something like, you look at the watch, it's 4 a.m. Wow! You are so happy. Now it is time to start my yoga practice, and with full beaming 1000 watt smile, we jump into the yoga mat. So that is satkara. And then asevita is the 4th ingredient. That means with a complete attitude of service, to serve the body and the mind, rather than demanding the body. Many times we do exercise with a sense of demand. So I'm going to exercise for 6 months, you better show me those biceps, right? Or you better lose 20 pounds. So that is not the attitude with which we do yoga sadhana. In yoga, we say, oh, this body, the body is a sacred vehicle, right? It's a temple that houses the divine within. So we serve the body by doing our sadhana with that attitude of service. And then the benefits become dridabhumihi. It becomes firmly grounded, firmly established. So this is abhyasa. And what particular abhyasas does Patanjali talk about? He gives 3 broad streams of abhyasas. And we're going to talk about a little later. But before we look at the 3 streams of practices that Patanjali gives, let us look at the other half of the equation. Because abhyasa and vairagya, right? What is vairagya? Raga means craving, hankering. I want the results now. I'm not happy until I get what I want. You see, that is a state which is the opposite of vairagya, which is raga, craving. So vairagya means to go beyond that, vitaraga, to go beyond, transcend raga. And Patanjali gives a definition. Drishta anushravika vishaya vitrushnasya vashikara samya vairagyam. Trishna means thirst or craving. Vitrishna means going beyond craving, removing the craving. For if I get that, I will be happy. Dropping that. In other words, vairagya is the firm understanding that my happiness doesn't reside in outside objects or events. So that is the first step of vairagya. But vairagya doesn't stop there. So if somebody says your happiness is not there, your happiness is not in iPhone 17, your happiness is not in Landu, your happiness is not. So you can say, then where is happiness? You tell me that, right? And then that is the Parama Vairagya. You discover what is the true source of happiness. That is Parama Vairagya. And Patanjali says, where does true happiness reside? Tat Param, the highest Vairagya is Purushakhyate Gunavaitrishnyam. Purushakhyati. That means the happiness can come only from within. We produce the happiness. In fact, Purusha is always happy and we are just manifesting it within in our experience. So that is Parama Vairagya. So first step is to recognize where happiness is not, and the second, the highest step of Vairagya is to recognize where happiness truly is. In fact, Shankara has a very beautiful statement in the Bhajagovinda. Kasya sukham na karoti viragaha. Kasya sukham na karoti viragaha. What happiness does not the Vairagya give? It gives you all the happiness, Vairagya, because you are connecting yourself to the source of happiness, which is the self. So moving around the world as a happy person, as Swamiji says, not for happiness, but as a happy person. So whatever actions we do, we are doing the actions not with an expectation of joy, but as an expression of joy. We are already joyful, and then we use actions as a way to express that joy. So that is Vairagya. And how to develop Vairagya? Patanjali gives a few clues. One way to develop Vairagya is live your life. You will find out in due course of time that happiness is not there. After a few years, that wisdom slowly dawns. Right? That's why we respect elders. They have lived life, and that's a nice Subhashitani, right? Acharyat padam adatte, padam sishya sumedeya, padam sa brahmacharibhya, padam kalakramena tu. We learn through four channels. One is through our teacher, Acharya. And then the second is through our own intellect. And the third is sab-brahmacharibhya, that means with our peers and our classmates, like what we are doing here. We are learning from each other. And then the fourth is in due course of time, with experience dawns that wisdom. So living our life, the Vairagya automatically comes. Another way to develop Vairagya is through tapas. Tapas, tap means heat. And when we go through, for example, when there's a craving in the mind, oh, I want that object now. If I get that, I will be happy. So what we do, we go to Amazon.com, and by the evening time, it will appear on our doorstep, right? So rather than doing that, instant gratification, we take the vow, the vrata of delayed gratification. Okay, I'm going to acquire that object after I wait for 48 hours. Right? Delayed gratification. And after 48 hours, so during the 48 hours, we are going through the fire of desire, Kamagni, and that fire will purify us, and it will transform the mind to a Vairagya state of mind. You see, it will purify the mind. We gain that Vairagya. After 48 hours, we recognize, oh, I'm still here without that object. I'm also happy. So I really don't need it. So whether you acquire that object or not, it doesn't matter. You have given yourself the experience of 48 hours of not having it. You are going through that fire. So that is another way to develop Vairagya. And one more way to develop Vairagya, Vitaraga Vishayam Va Chittam. Patanjali gives another method. Vitaraga Vishayam Va Chittam. Look at somebody who is already living that, Vitaraga, and then keep thinking about them. Somebody who inspires you. They are always happy. they're not hankering for anything, they're exuding happiness. So they inspire you. They're like a role model, like the guru, or like someone who is a karma yogi, who they inspire you with the selfless service. They're happy and happily sharing with others. So vitaraga vishayam va chittam. When we keep thinking about them, what happens is in the Yoga Sutra Bhashya, Vyasa says how this works, how this principle works is, if you pour water into a container, the water takes the shape of the container. Right? Like that, if you pour your awareness to somebody, if you constantly keep thinking about them, what are we doing? We are pouring our awareness to them. So our mind takes the same shape. Mind gets shaped by that. Many times we constantly keep thinking about somebody because we dislike them. Right? In fact, we give more real estate to people we don't like than people who inspire. And that is actually a horrible idea, right? Because our mind will get shaped by what we don't want. So here, the strategy is to think of somebody who inspires me. So that is about Vairagya. And of course, Vairagya, there are many places in the Bhagavad Gita that Krishna talks about Vairagya, Vitaraga and so forth. In fact, I'd like to quote one verse. Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehina rasavarcham rasopyasya param drishtva nivartate. Param drishtva, the highest. So, to give an analogy, when you see the sun, then there is no significance of a candle. So, when you have tasted the highest happiness that comes from Purusha Khyati, then all these little pleasures that come from the outside world, they pale in comparison. So, automatically they will wither away. You will not be attached to them because you have seen the highest. So, that is about Vairagya. Now, let us turn our attention to Abhyasa. There are three streams of Abhyasas that Patanjali has given. The first stream of Abhyasa is for adept yogis, people who are already, they have a control over their mind, ekagra chitta. In fact, in the Vyasa Bhashya, he talks about 5 chitta bhumis, 5 types of chittas, 5 types of minds. And depending on which type the sadhaka is or adhikari is, they will adopt a specific path of yoga, which of the 3 abhyasas they should do. So what are the 3 abhyasas, 3 streams of practices? For the adept yogi, the practice is inner practice, that is antaranga sadhana. And this is also termed as Raja Yoga. The word Raja Yoga, usually people interpret it as royal path, right? But the deeper meaning behind Raja Yoga is, the word Raja comes from Rajra. And again, when we look at the canon, the dictionary, Ratupata, Rajra Deep Tau, that is the definition of Rajra, that means light. Rajra means light. So, Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, converting or transforming a clouded mind to a brilliant mind is Raja Yoga. You see? Yoga of light, or you can say yoga of enlightenment is Raja Yoga. And the practices for the adept yogi are all inner practices. They don't need to stand on their head for a long time and do a lot of things with their body, a lot of asanas, because their mind is already ready. You see? So for them, Patanjali gives the practices in the very first chapter. If you see, the first chapter is called Samadhi Yoga. Samadhi is, we think of Samadhi as one of the final goals of yoga, right? When we read a text, if you want to learn mathematics, the first chapter, if it starts with calculus, right, then it might be intimidating, right? But here Patanjali does exactly that, because he doesn't want these adept yogis to wait. They're already ready, so let's take care of them first. And then whoever needs a little more assistance, we will take care of them in the second, third and fourth chapter. So the first stream of yoga is for adept yogis. And then he gives Kriya Yoga, the yoga of purifying action, Kriya Yoga. Kriya Yoga is for novice yogis. Because for novice practitioners, it's easier to control the body through action rather than controlling the mind. I hope you agree with me, right? It's easier to control the body. If I say, okay, run from here to there and come back, it is easier than telling, okay, fix the mind on this one object for 5 minutes. Very difficult, right? So actions of the body is easier than controlling the mind. And in fact, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says the same thing. The 6th chapter, he says, Arurukshor muner yogam karma karanam uchyate yoga rudasya tasyeva shamah karanam uchyate. Arurukshu means novice yogi. For a novice yogi, karma karanam uchyate. Their focus should be on karma, actions. And then for a yoga ruda, adept yogi, the focus will be shama. Shama has been translated or defined by Shankara as mano nigraha. That means uniting the mind with the self, like whatever it takes in order to bring the mind to a place of chitta vritti nirodha, inner practices. So that will be the focus for a yoga ruda, for an adept yogi. So the third stream of yoga is the holistic yoga that perhaps many of us are familiar with. The Ashtanga system, the Ashtanga yoga, which integrates all these teachings together as one package. So you might be wondering, right? The goal of yoga is chitta vritti nirodha, samadhi, change the state of the mind. So why are we doing all these practices of body postures, Surya Namaskar, the breath work? Because if we need to transform the mind, we have to address the mind, right? But the key is, unless the body cooperates and assists our practice, the body might start resisting the practice. For example, if you sit for meditation to quiet the mind, expecting like profound bliss states, samadhi states, oh, I'm going to see a blue light, I'm going to see a divine vision, I'm going to see Devi Devatas. And guess what? 2 minutes into the meditation, we become keenly aware of the low back pain. Oh, my knee hurts. Oh, my itching here, scratching there. A mosquito is sitting on my forearm. We don't think of all that when we watch a movie, right? We are totally oblivious to all it. But when we sit for meditation, there is no other alambana. There is no other point of focus. So the sensations in the body are more keenly felt. We become more sensitive to it. It's like putting a giant magnifying glass over all the sensations in the body. So they become very loud. So we need to attend to the body first. In fact, Swamiji says that 99% of meditation is body preparation. So when we bring harmony to the body so that the body is stable, sthiram, and then comfortable, sukham, then we can forget the body. You can park the body and enjoy the inner scenery. It's like you park your car and then enjoy the mountain. You step out of the car and enjoy the mountain. Like that, you park your body and the body will not disturb you. You can forget the body. Angalagavam. That's one of the definition of physical health in yoga. Angalagavam. Body feels so light that you can forget the body. Otherwise, it will constantly assert its presence in our awareness. It will trap our attention, right? For example, when are we aware of our left big toe? How many of us here are constantly thinking, I have a left big toe, I have a left big toe? We have forgotten it, right? We become aware of it only when we stub it. So only when something goes wrong, suddenly it makes its presence felt. So when the body recedes into the background, then we can go deeper in meditation. So asanas help us achieve that. In fact, that is the goal of asanas, not to do some amazing yoga postures and put those pictures on Instagram. Yoga is not true yoga, right? Let me share a small story. So when I was studying with my teacher, I studied with my first yoga teacher, Yogacharya Subramanian sir, for 14 years. So during my yoga education, so he taught me an asana, Mayurasana, peacock posture. It's an intermediary / advanced posture and it's very beneficial for the digestive system. And then I thought, because I was reading a yoga book where I saw a picture of a one-handed Mayurasana. So I thought, let me surprise my teacher. I'm going to practice it secretly. And then I will show this to my teacher and then I'll get some applause. Right? So what I did was, at home every day, I used to devote like 15 or 20 minutes to practice one hand, and it was very difficult. I thought I could master it in like 1 month. No, it took me a Satu Dirgha Kala, 2 years it took me to gain some balance with one-handed Mayurasana. And then at one point I thought, okay, this is now in a state where I can show this, display this to my teacher. So one day I called him after the yoga class and I showed him the one-handed Mayurasana. And after that I was with big eyes expecting some applause, right? And then he did a slow clap. And then he said, the marginal benefit, the additional benefit from two-handed Mayurasana to one-handed Mayurasana is so little that if you put the same tapas, same discipline into meditation, by now you would have been an enlightened sage. So that's exactly what Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. This is called Rajasika tapas. What is Rajasika tapas? Satkaramana pujartham tapodambhena chaivayat kriyate tadiha proktam rajasam chalamadhruvam satkaramana pujartham, to gain some praise and some respect, honor, and tapodambhena chaivayat. Damba means ostentatious, like showing off. And kriyate tadiha proktam rajasam chalamadhruvam, adhruvam. That means when there is no audience, the tapas also will disappear. When there is camera, they show off. But then when there is nobody is watching, then the tapas also will disappear. That is not the highest sattvic tapas, it's a rajasic tapas. So that day I truly understood what is tapas, why do we need to consult the yoga shastras, because as Swamiji says, it's very easy to take the wrong exit and drive efficiently for 80 miles. Right? So what's the point in that? We are going further away from our goal. Here the goal is chittavritti nirodha, not acquiring more muscles or losing body weight. That there are all fringe benefits of yoga, but the main objective we should never lose sight of. So that is the role of the body in order to assist us in meditation and so forth. So the 8 limbs of the Ashtanga Yoga, we will see that maybe after a break. I think now it's a good time to pause here. And are there any questions at this point on whatever we have covered so far? And then we will take a break and then we will continue with the Ashtanga Yoga.
Yeah.
Questions? Yeah.
I mean, that your analogy of the half Mayuri pose reminds us, how far we should be doing yoga. When do we know that I think we attained a level where I think this is good enough? There's no such thing as super yoga. We try to spend more and more time. So how do we know that we arrived?
In fact, one way to think about yoga sadhana as we are not trying to add something to our practice and becoming better and better. It's trying to subtract. In other words, remove the cobwebs and the inner exuberance, because the self is already healthy. That's why swastha, abiding in the self, connects us to the true health. So we're going to subtract. Remove the clouds and the sun will reveal itself. Open the window and the sunlight will come. We don't have to drag the sunlight. So here, in yoga sadhana, the key word is allow. Allow. Allow happiness. Allow exuberant health. We are not trying to produce it. If we are trying to produce it, we need a lot of action to construct it. And it's not like building a house. It's like subtracting it. And in fact, Patanjali gives an analogy for that in the 4th chapter. Nimittama prayojakam prakritinam varana bhedastu tataha kshetrikavat. Like a kshetri, a farmer. If a farmer wants to irrigate his field, he doesn't carry buckets of water, do a lot of physical work and bring one bucket at a time to pour the water into the field. What he does is, there's a river flowing by nearby, and he will create a little channel, and that using with some buns of sand, he will create a little channel, and the water which is flowing anyway in the river, it will simply, a part of it will come to his field. So it's an effortless thing. His effort is only to create that little channel. His effort is not to bring, these buckets of water. That's exactly what we are doing with yoga sadhana. Any other? Yeah.
Maybe if there are any first.
Any questions from the Zoom audience?
Namaste Shriramji, this is Raju Delhi.
Yes, namaste Rajuji.
It was wonderful. I get a lot of new things in every of your speech. today, you started with dictionary meanings of yoga, yoga meaning from Nigantu, Devtas, and gave some quite enlightening definitions, and also discovered the meaning of sadhana. I never thought sadhana. Sadhana, I was just taking it as a practice, but today you told sadhana. It is a dhana. And in the process, Patanjali Yoga, what is sadhana? Sadhana, he simply, sadhana is equal to abhyasa plus vairagya. That's from your classes I learned. But I have a question regarding sadhana, abhyasa and vairagya. Sadhana is equal to abhyasa plus vairagya. Abhyasa is a practice, and vairagya, can I practice or it comes out of abhyasa?
Yeah,
Say
that's
for
why.
example, I should practice abhyasa and I should practice vairagya. But vairagya, if I forcefully, I don't know what are the means of practicing. It is like relinquishing vairagya. That's what somehow we think there are techniques. But when we are doing abhyasa, I have a feeling that vairagya automatically comes when the abhyasa culminates.
Correct. They both
So
help
this is
each
the
other.
question.
Yes, they both help each other. So when we do more abhyasa, vairagya automatically happens. It's quicker. As we saw, vairagya happens with living of our life experience anyways. So with abhyasa, when the mind is more clear, when the intellect is sharp, it becomes easier to recognize the truth that my happiness is not contingent upon acquiring this object, or it's not dependent upon a certain event to happen, and so forth.
Thank you very much, Shriramji. One last question about the 5 types of abhyasa you said. I mean, this is again first time for me, for Arudas, for the Ekata Buddhis, and I want to, is there any PowerPoint or, I would like to have a recording or something so that I ruminate, I can't afford to just forget.
Yes, I can share that with the whole
Thank you so much.
group, and you'll
Yeah.
find this in the Vyasa Bhashya, Vyasa's commentary. He divides the chittas into 5 types: Kshipta, Mudha, Vikshipta, Ekagra, and Niruddha. Those are called the Chitta Bhumayaha, 5 types of chittas. And depending on which of the 5 types that we are in, we select that particular stream of abhyasa. And I'll share the references to that as well.
It is in Bhagavad Gita as well, or only in Patanjali or Bhashyam?
Yeah, it's in the Bhashya, in the Vyasa's
Only?
commentary. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, beautiful talk. Just a clarification. In Patanjali Yoga Sutra, yoga is using only one meaning. Whereas in the Bhagavad Gita, yoga comes more than 90 times, and everything in different contexts, it is different meaning, right? Like sometimes it just means karma yoga, sometimes it means jnana yoga, jnana. So is that right? In Gita, it's in multiple meanings.
Yes, as the Swamiji says, it's a Sangraha Shastra where we look at yoga, because as a Yoga Shastra, we see many different facets of yoga coming together. For example, after the break, we are going to examine the Karmasu Kaushalam, Yoga Karmasu Kaushalam. And Patanjali actually gives some sutras around that. He talks about the law of karma, and when do we accrue karma, and how can we skillfully manage the karmas in our karmashaya. So the Karmasu Kaushalam that we see in the Bhagavad Gita, and Patanjali's wisdom of how the karma gets accrued in the karma tank, or the repository of karma in the karmashaya, he explains that beautifully. So cross-referencing both, we are able to get a deeper understanding of that, and we will see that after the break.
Swamiji's. Swamiji, any comments?
Before
He gave one more talk. Yeah, at the end.
I have
Can-
one.
Go ahead.
So in Bhagavad Gita we also have the verse Gita Raga Bhaya Krodha
Yes.
Maya Mamupashita Bhavo Jnana Tapasa Bhutamad Bhava. So there are 4 things that are described, right? Gita Raga Bhaya Krodha and Manmaya.
Yes.
Mamupashita. So the dispassion, the detachment Is it kind of associated with those four things? Or
Yes, we see this association in many different places. Even in the Amanitva Madambitva, the 20 values.
Yeah.
We see what is it? Amanitva Madambitva
Seventh
Shantirajam
chapter.
Acharyo Pasanam Shaucham
Sthairya
Atmavigati, the very next one.
Indriyartheshu vairagyam anahankara eva cha. Yeah.
So like that, you will see it in so many. In 18th chapter also we see Vairagya. Yes.
So I just need a clarification. You said sadhanam is wealth, abundant wealth, but sadhanam sadhyate anena. It is sadhanam. So from which we achieved.
Yes.
From yatna, from abhyasa we achieved, from vairagya achieved. So, but sadhanam can be
Just like a play of words to remember.
Yes.
abundant wealth.
Yes, that is the actual definition. So Siddhi, Sadhana, Sadhaka and Siddha, they all come from the same root.
But sadhanam can be defined as abundant wealth.
And that's
That is
his
kind
play
of
of words, just to
Okay.
remember.
Yes.
Just to remember.
Okay.
So, Shriram, just to complete my
Yeah.
answer, 1 second. So, two definitions. Third definition,
Samyama.
maybe it is obvious to everybody, but it is one, I know it's in the Gita, Yoga Sutras. Do you have any reference for it, where this definition
The
of
Samyama, Yoga
Yeah.
as Samyama. Of course, in the Gita also we see
Yeah.
Samyama.
Samyama.
Ya Nisha Sarva Bhutanam Tasyam Jagrati Samyami Yasyam Jagrati Bhutani Sa Nisha Pashyatu. So Samyami.
You gave the references where like you said, the first one was used by Yajnavalkya,
Yes.
second by Patanjali.
Yeah.
Was the third one, do you have a reference or no?
No, I have not seen
Oh,
Yoga
okay,
Shastra.
just to
Because
complete my notes.
the second and third are very close together.
Correct.
Okay.
The attainment of Samadhi and Samyama are very
Yeah.
close.
Yeah.
And we are going to see what exactly is Samyama
Yeah, dhyana,
according
dharana,
to
samadhi.
Patanjali. We will see that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I think Venkat Rauji had a question.
Yeah,
No, I was just trying to tell you how different is your today's presentation. It gives a lot more information, lot more analysis is in your presentation than what I heard from you when you're teaching us.
So
Yeah.
I'm making progress in my Yoga Sutras.
That's absolutely.
May.
Not only that, you're making good progress in expressing and teaching also.
Yeah.
Thank
It's,
you, Venkat Rauji.
yeah, anytime Sri Ram talks, it's like Navonmesham. So you will see something new and you will learn something new. And he is born today, so
Birthday
we have
is,
abundance of that now
By the way,
onwards.
it's Venkat Rauji's birthday as well.
Janmadina Shubhashamsaha for both of you.
Many happy returns of the day. Thank you very much, Dr. Raji, for reminding.
Okay. Then just a couple of things to the first shloka is so beautiful, the sutra definition. There are a couple of variations, astokam and astobham. Astobham is no interruptions. Astokam is not any less. Just because it is concise, so it's succinct, it is actually Vishwatomukham, so astokam. Then Vairagya, Viraga. To remember, just to remember, I have not seen this etymology. One is Vigata Raga is Viraga, but Vishesha Raga is also Viraga, Vairagyam. So Vigata Raga to lower and lesser important things, detachment from them, but attachment to something higher, unique and special and more important, Vishesha Raga. Vigata Raga, Vishesha Raga. That's how I remember. So very easy to remember too, like that. iPhone 13, now 17. Obviously, Vigata Raga to 13, Vishesha Raga to 17. And then Param Drishva Nivartate, Swamiji in front of you and Krishna Garu, that beautiful shloka. Rasavarjam Rasopyasya Param Drishva. So that we can keep Gulab Jamun away, Laddu away, but the craving will be there. That craving will be gone either when you look at what the talk and experience of what Malli said yesterday on health. So that is Param Drustva. We Param Drustva. So Paraha, if you take it as first case, Param is second case. So we seeing Paramatma doing it. Then Paraha can be masculine. Feminine Para. And neutral gender is Param. So if you take Param as first case, Param drusva nivartade. So he has to shower his grace on us. Guru has to shine grace on us. Like, so both ways, the Dharma Megha should happen. So if you practice, that Dharma Megha will happen, I think. Then lastly, we are so lucky here. I don't know, I know it just sometimes beyond words, but Manushyatvam, Mumukshutvam, Mahapurusha Samshrayaha. These Daivanugraha Hetukam. Durlabham Trayamevaitat Daivanugraha Hetukam, Manushyatvam, Mumukshutvam and Mahapurusha Samshrayaha. So that again, so getting a guru like Swamiji and Satsang. Satsangatve Nissangatvam, Nissangatve Nirmohatvam, Nirmohatve Nischalatatvam, Nischalatatve Jivan Muktihi. And then one last definition of Vairagya, if you don't mind. Not Vairagya, Abhyasa. So there is Abhyasa of practice of drill or anything, now your games and reading and all, Yoga Abhyasa. But Brahma Abhyasa is this, Tat Chintanam, Tat Kathanam, Anyonyam tat prabodhanam etadeka paratvam cha brahmabhyasam vidurbudha. So this brahmabhyasam, what we are doing is actually brahmabhyasana. Tat chintanam, we are thinking of it. Tat kathanam, we just Kathopanishad katha we are. Then anyonyam paraspara bodhanam. Anyonyam, so that bodhanam. And then etadeka paratvam cha, that is the goal here. That Gita and other Shastras, Sarva Shastramaye Gita. So that's the Brahmabhyasa.
Before we take a short break, I just wanted to mention one thing. So as Venkatrauji pointed out, we had this Shubhodayam group where for many years as a study group we came together. Dr. Raju, Anoopji, Venkatrauji. So after I used to give my 1 hour presentation that morning, I used to have a 15 minutes of debrief. So Dr. Raju will call me and say, okay, these are the places where you can constructive feedback. And I'm so grateful for that, Dr. Raju. They call it the Badavagni. That means the fire of criticism, not criticism, but peer review, we can say. And I'm so grateful for that, and that really helped me. And for example, new definitions of Vairagya, of Abhyasa that I'm learning now. So I'm always grateful for that. Thank you. So we'll take a break.
Can I offer one small comment? So there is a Vairagya of Abhyasa also, because getting too attached is yoga practice. You need to take a Vairagya from that.
Correct.
And there is also the Abhyasa of Vairagya, the practice of detaching.
So my teacher used to give a nice example for that. Vairagya without Abhyasa is like a little leaf or a twig that simply is floating in water. It goes with the current, it goes wherever it's the water is taking it. That is Vairagya. It just doesn't have any agency of its own. It's Vairagya.
Untethered.
Abhyasa without Vairagya is like going against the current. I want to reach that goal, but the water is going in the opposite direction. So going against the current is Abhyasa without Vairagya. And Abhyasa with Vairagya is like a ship, grand ship that uses the currents of the water and it sets its destination. So everything is in harmony.
I wonder there is an etymological meaning for Abhyasa. Like, asa is Abhi, so.
Asana comes from asa. And even Vinyasa, which is a very popular term in the yoga world, asa. Asa becomes Nyasa, Nitaram asa. And then Vividha Nitaram asa, Vinyasa.
And Samnyasa also comes from
Samyak
Nyasa. Yes. Sampurna Nyasa.
And also without Abhyasa, Vairagya becomes Abhava Vairagya or Smashana Vairagya.
Yes. In other words, Apati. Apati.
So this asa is asada.
Asa.
Asda.
Or asada.
Asa. I will check that.
Yeah.
I thought it was asa.
Yeah. There two dhatus though?
Sanskrit is a beautiful language. If there is lack of Abhyasa, it becomes Abha. So easy.
Shabash.
There is some message in the chat.
Yes. So let's take a break now.
3 minutes. Just tell them 3 minutes.
Okay. 3.5 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, because the